Americans who visit Japan, China, or Europe tend to be impressed by three things: the food, the architecture, and public transport. While a case can be made that America has great food and decent architecture of its own, the same cannot be said about the latter, especially when it comes to high-speed trains. The truth is, despite several ambitious proposals and pockets of progress, the US has yet to fully embrace the potential of high-speed rail. But why? To answer that question, in this video, we'll dive into the complex web of factors that have stymied the development of this critical infrastructure. From the legacy of automotive culture in the US to the powerful lobbying interests, the immense costs involved, and regulatory roadblocks, we'll examine why the US has struggled to build the high-speed rail systems that seem like a logical next step for such a modern, dynamic country. We'll also consider the potential benefits that could be realized if the United States were to prioritize this transformative mode of transportation. So join us as we embark on a journey of discovery to find out why the US has no high-speed railways. In an era where technology propels us towards new frontiers at breakneck speeds, it's surprising that the United States has such a glaring absence in its transportation network. As other nations around the world harness the potential of high-speed rail to enhance connectivity, efficiency, and sustainability, the US has seemingly missed the train altogether on an opportunity to revolutionize its infrastructure. After all, high-speed railways have proven to be hugely beneficial in countries like Japan, France, and China, where their deployment has spurred economic growth, reduced carbon emissions, and eased congestion on roads and airways. Yet the dream of a high-speed rail network spanning the vast American expanse remains tantalizingly elusive. Just to be clear, although there's no universally applicable standard worldwide, railway lines designed to accommodate speeds of over 155 miles per hour or 124 miles per hour on upgraded lines are generally recognized as high-speed railways. By that metric, it can be argued that the US has one high-speed railway at most. Presently, Amtrak's 𝗍 runs between Boston and Washington, reaching a top speed of 150 miles per hour for less than 50 miles of its journey. Woohoo! Compare that with over 26,000 miles of high-speed rail in China, or more than 1,740 miles of tracks in France and Japan respectively, and you start to get a picture of just how far the US lags behind. What's more, many foreign trains are capable of speeds of up to 200 miles per hour, with the Shanghai Maglev, China's fastest train, able to reach an eye-watering 286 miles per hour. Being able to zip between major cities in a fraction of the time it would take in a car or on a bus is a major advantage economically. Plus, it vastly reduces greenhouse gas emissions, especially when using electrified lines that produce none. And hopping on a train is much less troublesome for passengers than boarding an aeroplane. So what's the holdup in America? Well, first we need a short history lesson to understand the mindset of the American government. Throughout the 20th century, the US prioritized the development of its interstate highway system and the expansion of air travel, which became the dominant modes of long-distance transport. As a result, investment in rail infrastructure, particularly high-speed rail, took a backseat. The car and oil industries have always been massive money spinners in America, with high-profile companies like General Motors and Ford generating billions of dollars in income. In fact, the revenue of United States motor vehicle and parts dealers was $1.53 trillion as of 2021, accounting for around 3% of America's GDP. By comparison, the market size of the rail transportation industry in America, measured by revenue, was $113.6 billion in 2022. One piece of legislation passed in 1956 helped to cement the country's preference for cars over rail. It was the Federal Aid Highway Act, also known as the National Interstate and Defense Highways Act, which was signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on June 29 that year. It was one of the most ambitious public works projects in American history and had a profound impact on car culture and the transportation landscape in the United States. The act authorized the construction of a vast network of interstate highways that would span the entire country. $25 billion was invested, and 41,000 miles of highways were created. The goal was to provide a reliable and efficient road system for both civilian and military purposes. It would link major cities, support economic growth, and improve national defense capabilities by facilitating the rapid movement of troops and equipment. Over time, even more billions of dollars were invested in the interstate system, making it the largest public works project in the United States. However, whilst monumental at the time, in light of modern alternatives, the over-reliance on automobiles, as opposed to trains, may have scuppered America's progress for years to come. Up until 1945, the country was a global leader in rail travel, with an extensive and well-developed railroad network at the forefront of technological innovations. America pioneered the use of steel rails, powerful locomotives, and improved signaling systems, making trains faster, safer, and more reliable. Post-Second World War, though, development practically ceased, as companies like General Motors, fire Firestone Tires, and Standard Oil lobbied to phase out rail travel altogether. Ever since, the rail industry has fallen out of favor, while the car industry has boomed, to the extent that there are now 850 cars per 1,000 inhabitants in the US, compared to just 250 cars per 1,000 inhabitants in China. Even though there are calls from some states in America to modernize and upgrade its rail system, since major companies like Amtrak are owned by the government, there's little incentive for them to do so, mainly due to the substantial costs involved. According to a survey by the American Public Transportation Association titled High Speed Rail in America 2015, 63% of Americans expressed a strong interest in using high-speed trains if they were readily available. That percentage increased to 67% when participants were informed that high-speed rail would be more cost-effective than flying and offer faster travel times compared to driving. Yet despite the significant interest, the reality is that a vast majority of Americans do not currently have access to any high-speed rail options. Building high-speed rail networks is a costly endeavor that requires a lot of funding. The vast geographical expanse of the United States poses unique challenges for constructing high-speed rail lines too, making it even more expensive compared to smaller and denser countries that have successfully implemented such systems. Experts estimate that it can cost anywhere between $20 million to $80 million to construct just 1 mile of high-speed rail track in the US. While China can build things quickly and cheaply, there's a lot of bureaucracy in the States that slows down construction. Workers demand fair wages and safe working conditions. Environmentalists demand green practices and conservation of wildlife. There's private land ownership to contend with, and all sorts of barriers that aren't as prevalent in places like China. High-speed rail projects in the US also require consistent support from political leaders and stakeholders over the long term. However, political priorities and agendas often shift with changing administrations, leading to inconsistency in funding and planning. When California began working on a publicly funded high-speed rail system in 2008, Donald Trump threatened to pull its funding as costs continued to soar years later. 15 years on, construction continues on a line between LA and San Francisco, with an estimated total cost of between $88 billion and $128 billion. The Central Valley section is planned to open in 2029, and Phase 1 is planned for completion in 2033. Unlike other nations, the US lacks a centralized, unified approach to high-speed rail development. Rail projects often involve multiple jurisdictions, including federal, state, and local entities, making coordination and decision-making more complex. Various industries, such as the automotive and airline sectors, have substantial lobbying power, and as in the past, they may intervene, perceiving high-speed rail as a potential threat to their businesses. Besides, other issues are often deemed to be more important in politics, so rail travel often gets pushed to the back of the political agenda. The fact that the US already has extensive road and air networks acts as a deterrent to investing huge sums in high-speed rail as an alternative. Still, the benefits of high-speed rail are hard to ignore, and despite the challenges, there have been several recent developments and initiatives at the state and regional level. In addition to the California line, Amtrak's 𝗂𝗇 trains will be able to reach top speeds of 165 miles per hour when new trains enter service, and 186 miles per hour in coming years. Private investment could be the quickest and fastest route to success, and there are multiple privately funded projects in the pipeline. These include the Texas Central Bullet Train between Dallas and Houston, which aims to be completed by 2025, as well as a high-speed railway between Miami and Orlando, to be operated by Virgin Trains USA, who bought out the previous company Brightline. Microsoft has reportedly invested $300 million in a potential high-speed railway, running between Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver too. While it could take decades for the US to catch up with other countries in the high-speed rail game, it's good to see that they're making progress, and it's about time too. But what do you think? Is investing so much money in a high-speed rail network really worth it? Would you take advantage of it? Let us know in the comments. Remember to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more in-depth insights. And don't forget to watch this video next, because it's what YouTube recommends the most.